Right now, I mean, 78% of you listening to this are probably using generative AI to do your jobs faster. Well, it's everywhere.
Yeah, it really is everywhere.
Right. But according to some new neurobiological research we're looking at, the way you are unconsciously interacting with that exact same tool might be actively degrading your brain's processing power by up to 40%.
Which is just a staggering number to even think about.
It's terrifying, honestly. So welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are asking a pretty huge question. In our breathless rush to, outsource our busy work to algorithms, are we accidentally outsourcing our very consciousness?
I mean, it truly is the defining tension of our current era.
Yeah.
We're handing over the keys to our cognitive processes to an external machine.
And nobody's reading the terms and conditions, right?
Exactly. Very few of us are reading the psychological contract we are signing when we log on.
And that tension is exactly what we are unpacking today. We're looking at this really brilliant synthesis by Dr. Jonathan H. Westover. It's an article called The 4 Agreements for the Age of Artificial Intelligence.
Yeah, and it's such a clever framing.
It really is.
Yeah.
He takes Don Miguel Ruiz's super famous 1997 framework, The 4 Agreements, which is rooted in indigenous Toltec wisdom, and he just maps it directly onto cognitive neuroscience, organizational behavior, and our minute-by-minute interactions with language models.
And the goal here is so crucial.
Right. Our mission today is to figure out how you can harness that incredible mind-bending power of AI without losing your human sovereignty, your critical thinking, or honestly, your connection to your own physical body.
What's fascinating here is the sheer scale of the disconnect between our usage and our awareness. I mean, the research highlights a stark statistic to back up your earlier point.
Right on.
So while that 78% of knowledge workers are regularly using generative tools, only 23% report getting any kind of guidance on how to engage with these systems consciously.
Wow. Only 23%.
Right. We are essentially operating incredibly powerful, reality-altering machinery completely in the dark.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we even get to the 4 agreements themselves, I think we need to understand the baseline problem. What exactly happens inside our heads when we use this technology in the dark?
That's the core question.
What's the real difference between conscious and unconscious engagement?
Well, conscious engagement requires active metacognitive awareness. It means you're acutely evaluating when, why, and exactly how you are applying an AI tool to a specific problem.
So you're treating it like a partner.
Exactly. You're treating the system as a cognitive partner, which means you have to critically interrogate its outputs. Unconscious engagement, conversely, is silent cognitive offloading.
Silent offloading, meaning we just blindly trust it.
Yes. You treat whatever the machine spits out as equivalent to human thought. It usually involves just task switching across multiple AI-generated notifications and completely losing your own internal center of gravity.
I think about it like relying entirely on a GPS while you're driving.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
It's incredibly helpful, right?
Yeah.
But if you stop looking out the windshield and you just blindly follow the blue line on the screen, you'll eventually drive your car straight into a lake.
That is exactly what happens, and the neuroscience details exactly how that mental crash occurs. When we engage in that unexamined cognitive delegation, especially jumping back and forth between our own deep thoughts and these notification-driven AI prompts,
Right.
we experience a severe cognitive penalty known as attention residue.
Attention residue, meaning the brain doesn't just instantly wipe the slate clean when you switch tabs on your browser.
Far from it. Your brain is not a solid-state computer drive that instantly clears its cache.
Right.
When you task switch between your own deep analytical thinking and a chatbot's output, your brain has to completely unload your current cognitive framework and load up an entirely new one.
Which takes energy.
A lot of energy? A significant portion of your processing power basically remains stuck on the previous AI prompt. That sticky leftover data is the attention residue.
Wow.
And the neurological friction of trying to process those two competing frameworks at once triggers a massive stress response. It floods the prefrontal cortex with cortisol.
And that's what drives the performance drop.
That is the exact mechanism that fractures your working memory and drives that 40% drop in cognitive performance we mentioned.
That is wild. You're using a tool specifically designed to make you a more efficient worker, and the biological friction of how you use it is actively destroying your ability to actually do the work.
Precisely.
So if our brains are taking that kind of unexamined hit, we clearly need a new set of rules to govern our interactions. Which brings us to the core of Westover's research, updating Ruiz's framework for a digital age. Let's look at the first agreement, which is, be impeccable with your word.
Right. Now, in the original 1997 context, being impeccable with your word meant speaking with integrity, saying only what you mean, avoiding gossip, things like that. Sure.
In our current landscape, Westover argues this translates to being fiercely conscious of how we communicate both with and through artificial intelligence.
How so?
We have to recognize that every single prompt we write and every AI-generated draft we just blindly accept physically shapes our own cognitive patterns.
Right.
Furthermore, we must actively remember that these models are trained on massive, historical datasets that inherently contain biases and specific worldviews.
Okay, I have to push back on this for a second, though.
Go for it.
Isn't the entire appeal of AI that I don't have to agonize over drafting a tedious quarterly report or like a mundane email? If we're forcing ourselves to meticulously craft every word manually just to be impeccable, don't we completely lose the efficiency we bought the software for in the first place?
It's a totally valid concern, but the goal isn't to abandon efficiency. The danger is adopting AI-suggested phrasings unconsciously.
Ah, I see. Because when you do that, you're adopting perspectives or biases that you haven't actually vetted, and you end up losing your authentic voice in the process. The solution is treating the AI as an editor rather than the primary author.
Okay, that makes sense.
The research highlights Patagonia's approach to this, which is really interesting. They implemented a company-wide rule where employees are required to draft customer communications and strategic documents in their own authentic voice first.
Oh, wow. So they have to write it out themselves.
Yes. They must put their human intention on the page before they ever consult an AI tool to refine or optimize the grammar.
They are forcing the employee to generate the initial spark. I actually loved how Kaiser Permanente handled this same tension in the medical field. I was reading that section of the source material, and they use AI to transcribe and summarize patient visits.
Which is a huge deal for doctors.
It's a massive time saver. Doctors are notoriously buried in paperwork. But Kaiser instituted this strict protocol where the physician must review those AI-generated notes while the patient is still physically present in the room.
Oh, that's brilliant.
All right, they edit the summary together to ensure it captures the genuine relational dynamic and the actual nuanced clinical reasoning of that specific visit.
That protocol is vital because it actively combats a psychological vulnerability known as automation bias.
Automation bias.
Yeah, it's our neurological tendency to favor a machine's suggestion over our own memory or judgment, simply because the machine presents the information in such a clean, authoritative format.
Okay, so if we're working that hard to protect our own voice going out, we have to be equally vigilant about how we receive the AI's voice coming in. We tend to subconsciously believe that a cleanly formatted response is just objective reality.
We really do.
And that perfectly frames the second agreement. Don't take anything personally.
Originally, this agreement was about realizing that other people's actions are a projection of their own reality, not a reflection of yours.
Right.
But in our interactions with language models, it means internalizing a pretty harsh truth. AI outputs are simply probabilistic patterns.
You're just guessing.
Exactly. They are statistical guesses based on training data. They're not definitive truths, they're not objective reality, and they certainly are not personalized wisdom handed down from some digital oracle.
But the illusion is so incredibly convincing. I mean, when an AI perfectly answers a highly specific niche question you've been struggling with all day, it feels deeply personal. It feels like the machine truly understands you.
I know, and that illusion of understanding is precisely what we have to break. Cognitive psychology shows humans possess a massive confirmation bias.
Tell me about it.
If an AI gives us a probabilistic guess that happens to align with what we already secretly believe, our brain just accepts it instantly and assigns it supreme authority. Conscious engagement requires maintaining a critical distance from that output.
And the BBC provides a pretty good masterclass on how to enforce this, right?
Yes, their approach is structurally fascinating.
I thought so too. They were using AI to analyze content and make editorial recommendations. But they realized that different AI models were feeding them systematically different worldviews.
Based entirely on their underlying data architectures.
Exactly. So instead of trying to find the one true model, they intentionally consult multiple competing AI systems at the same time.
They literally force the algorithms to argue with each other.
Which is so cool.
And when those systems inevitably provide divergent answers, the editorial team doesn't just pick the one they like best. They treat that algorithmic disagreement as a giant, flashing signal that nuanced human judgment is required.
The divergence wakes up their metacognitive awareness.
Yes. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the Vanguard group is taking this concept of waking up human awareness to a deeply physiological level.
Oh, right, the somatic responses.
Yeah, they train their financial advisors to actively monitor their somatic, meaning bodily responses when reviewing AI-generated portfolio recommendations.
It is such a remarkable integration of biology and finance. Think about that for a second if you're listening right now. The next time a language model gives you a summary that looks technically perfect on the screen, stop staring at the text and check your gut.
Literally check your gut.
Does your chest feel tight? Is there a vague, unexplained sense of unease? Vanguard teaches its advisors that this physical sensation is their biological intelligence, signaling that the algorithm missed a crucial human nuance, even if the math looks flawless.
Because our nervous systems process vast amounts of contextual data before it ever reaches our conscious analytical thought.
Right.
That bodily unease is your internal alarm bell. And when that alarm rings, it forces you to interrogate exactly how and why the AI arrived at its conclusion.
Because unconscious users never ask that question.
Never. They make the most dangerous assumption of all. They mistake an AI's confidence for accuracy.
Which is the exact trap warned about in the third agreement. Don't make assumptions.
Right. There is a well-documented phenomenon in explainable AI called the confidence gap. Language models are literally designed to sound authoritative. They don't experience human doubt.
They just calculate an output.
Exactly. They calculate probability and output text that mimics absolute certainty, even when they are hallucinating completely fabricated information.
I mean, anyone who has used these tools has experienced the confidence gap. It'll tell you a historical event happened in the wrong century or a book was written by the wrong author with such absolute, unwavering certainty that you actually start doubting your own memory.
It's unsettling. And when you extrapolate that design flaw from a fun trivia question to a high-stakes environment like a medical diagnosis, the consequences are severe.
Yeah, that's life or death.
Which is why the Cleveland Clinic implemented a rigorous practice called assumption archaeology.
Assumption archaeology, I love that term.
It's great. When their diagnostic AI suggests a likely medical condition, the clinicians are strictly forbidden from simply accepting it. They are required to explicitly state and document the hidden assumptions the AI is likely making about that specific patient's demographics, their symptom presentation, environmental factors, all of it.
They're essentially forced to dig up the hidden biases buried in the code. And through this assumption archaeology, the source material notes, they discovered that diagnostic models trained predominantly on historical data from adult males were frequently making deeply flawed, dangerous predictions for women and elderly patients.
Because the AI assumed a typical presentation based entirely on its limited historical worldview.
By forcing clinicians to actively unearth those assumptions, they preserve their own diagnostic reasoning.
Salesforce enforces a similar practice in the corporate realm called confidence calibration.
Oh, right, with their sales predictions.
Yes. Their AI forecasting tools were making highly confident sales predictions that kept turning out to be completely wrong as the second market conditions shifted. So, Salesforce required their sales leaders to explicitly map out the machine's ignorance.
Mapping out the machine's ignorance. That is such a powerful phrase. The human has to formally document. The AI is completely blind to this impending regulatory change, or the algorithm cannot possibly factor in this sudden macroeconomic shift that happened yesterday.
Exactly. It forces the human to supply the vital real-world context that the math cannot see.
And supplying that context demands significant cognitive effort. It forces you to actually engage with the problem rather than just accepting a good enough shortcut. And that transition from passive acceptance to active effort is the foundation of the fourth agreement. Always do your best.
Right.
When I read this section, it resonated so deeply. Unconscious AI use basically trains us to accept mediocrity. The AI spits out a B- draft of a proposal, and because it saved us 3 hours of agonizing work, we just shrug, accept the good enough standard, and hit send.
It's so tempting. But over time, that continuous acceptance of the B- standard fundamentally erodes your own internal capability for excellence.
It's like hiring someone else to lift weights for you at the gym and expecting to get muscles. You lose your cognitive fitness.
That's exactly it. Skill acquisition and mastery require the friction of deliberate practice. It requires wrestling with a blank page or a complex logistical problem. If an algorithmic tool eliminates the struggle prematurely, it short-circuits the learning process entirely.
Which is why forward-thinking organizations are changing their approach.
Right, they're no longer just asking, what can the AI do? They are asking, which specific human skills must we aggressively maintain, regardless of the machine's capabilities?
The Gensler architecture firm example blew my mind on this front.
Oh, their approach is fascinating.
They utilize AI heavily for complex spatial configurations, iterating on massive floor plans and doing the heavy computational lifting of geometry. But they draw an absolute non-negotiable line.
Yeah, the human scale element.
Exactly. Everything related to human scale experience, like how the afternoon light makes a space feel to inhabit, the cultural resonance of a specific building material, the emotional flow of a room that is strictly limited to human hands and human minds.
Because the AI does not possess a physical body. It has absolutely no concept of what it feels like to have the afternoon sun hit your face through a window, or how acoustic echo in a hallway creates anxiety.
It's just numbers to the AI.
Exactly. And Gensler's internal data showed that the architects who maintained direct, embodied engagement with the design process consistently produced vastly more innovative work than those who delegated the creative process to the software.
Deloitte tackles this same need for human effort through a practice they call somatic integration. For a management consulting firm, that means mandatory physical brainstorming.
Which sounds exhausting but necessary.
Right. Before any consulting team is allowed to sit down and digitally document their analysis with AI tools, they have to stand up, grab dry erase markers, use physical whiteboards and post-it notes, and engage in embodied kinetic collaboration. It physically preserves the consultant's analytical pathways and combats the cognitive fatigue of just staring at a screen.
And here is where it gets really interesting.
Lay it on me.
The fact that Gensler is obsessively focusing on how a room feels to a human body, and Deloitte is forcing highly paid consultants to stand up and write on physical whiteboards, points to a massive, glaring gap in Don Miguel Ruiz's original 1997 framework.
A gap that simply did not exist 30 years ago.
Right. In 1997, nobody had the option to completely abandon their physical biology and inhabit a disembodied, hyper-optimized digital realm for 12 hours a day.
We were stuck in the real world.
Exactly. Because of this unprecedented shift, Dr. Westover adds an entirely new, deeply necessary fifth agreement: preserve embodied presence.
Preserve embodied presence. It feels like the ultimate anchor for all the other agreements.
It really is.
The science of the body, specifically what the research calls interoceptive awareness, is fundamental to everything we have discussed. Interoceptive awareness is our biological ability to perceive our internal bodily states. It's the literal signaling between the vagus nerve and the brain.
And it is far more complex than just realizing you're hungry or tired. That interoceptive signaling is the biological foundation of our ethical judgment. It drives our emotional regulation.
Wow.
Yeah, and prolonged, unmediated interaction with artificial intelligence causes a recognized clinical condition called digital dissociation.
Digital dissociation. That sounds intense.
It is. We become so completely absorbed in the cognitive loop of the screen that we literally sever the connection to our own physical warning systems.
Which is exactly why the physical environments we work in matter more now than ever. Look at Novartis, the massive pharmaceutical company. They entirely redesigned their drug research labs.
Because drug discovery today is incredibly AI intensive.
Exactly. It involves running endless computational models against massive protein data sets. But Novartis intentionally designed their facilities to force tactile engagement and physical movement. They integrated natural light, outdoor walking paths, physical molecular models you can actually handle.
And the scientists at Novartis reported a fascinating outcome from that.
Yeah, what did they find?
Maintaining that continuous physical, somatic connection to their environment helped them intuitively notice when the AI's computational models felt wrong.
There's that gut feeling again.
Right. The algorithmic math would be entirely logically consistent, but the scientists' embodied intuition, their interoceptive awareness, would trigger a red flag, prompting them to look closer at the data. That physical intuition directly led to more accurate drug discovery.
That is incredible. McKinsey is applying this same principle to time rather than physical space. They mandate technology Sabbaths.
Tech Sabbaths?
Yeah. Their consultants are required to take one full day a week, completely stripped of digital tools. No AI, no screens, no optimization engines, just physical prototyping, face-to-face conversation, and undistracted analog reflection.
The paradox of the technology Sabbath is profound. By intentionally slowing down and stepping away from the machines designed to make them faster, the consultants actually improve the strategic quality and creativity of their final deliverables.
Because the human brain requires offline processing time to synthesize complex information.
Ab-
I completely agree with the neuroscience, but let's be real for a second. Individual habits like taking a tech Sabbath or monitoring your interoceptive awareness are great in theory. But if your manager is breathing down your neck, demanding immediate, perfectly optimized AI-generated deliverables 24 hours a day, your individual mindfulness practice is doomed.
The system will crush the individual.
Exactly. The change has to be systemic.
This raises an important question. How do we fundamentally recalibrate the psychological contract between employer and employee?
Yeah, how do we do that?
Well, historically, corporations rewarded people for optimization for acting like highly efficient machines. But if artificial intelligence is now supplying the limitless raw intelligence and the baseline efficiency, humans must be valued for supplying the wisdom.
You cannot evaluate a human being on how fast they process data anymore, because the algorithm will always win that race. Organizations have to stop evaluating employees on output volume and start evaluating them on conscious judgment.
And Microsoft is actually pioneering this shift. They now evaluate their developers based on AI partnership quality.
AI partnership quality, that's a huge shift.
They are looking past the sheer number of lines of code a developer generates. The evaluation focuses on the employee's critical evaluation of the AI's recommendations, their ability to identify algorithmic limitations, and their ethical consideration of how the AI is applied to the end user.
They are explicitly monetizing and valuing conscious engagement over blind task completion.
Exactly. KPMG is tackling the cultural anxiety surrounding this shift, too. They host what they call AI consciousness circles.
Oh, I read about those.
Yeah, it functions as a psychologically safe space for peers to gather and openly discuss the seductive nature of algorithmic efficiency. They talk about the very real temptation to just let the machine do the hard thinking, and they hold each other accountable for maintaining their human discernment.
Bridgewater Associates literally built this philosophical pension into their architecture. They operate hardcore, ruthlessly efficient algorithmic trading floors. But immediately adjacent to those floors, they constructed meditation spaces and designated tech-free zones.
Structurally forcing the balance.
Right. They are structurally forcing their workforce to constantly toggle between computational intelligence and deep human contemplation. They recognize that during periods of unprecedented market volatility like black swan events, that the AI has no historical training data to understand. It is that contemplative, distinctly human judgment that will save the firm.
But the ultimate systemic safety net, the detail that truly stopped me in my tracks, comes from JP Chase. Their governance framework distributes the responsibility of consciousness to everyone.
It is a revolutionary policy. It's modeled almost like the and-on cord in Toyota manufacturing.
Yes. They instituted a policy where any employee at any level of the corporate hierarchy is fully authorized to hit a literal pause button on an AI system if they notice it compromising human consciousness, perpetuating a hidden bias, or operating unethically.
And they can halt the system without risking their career or facing retaliation.
Which is key.
It acknowledges that unconscious technology use is a massive systemic failure, not just an individual lapse in judgment. So what does this all mean for you listening right now?
That's the big takeaway.
It means that in an era where computational intelligence is cheap, instantaneous, and ubiquitous, your distinct, messy, biological human capacities are your most precious assets. Your metacognitive awareness, your physical embodied presence, your ethical discernment. These are the vital elements the machine cannot replicate. We must leverage AI to expand our capabilities, not to replace our active, friction-filled engagement with the world.
As we close, I want to offer a final thought drawn from the source materials reference to existential psychologist Viktor Frankl.
Oh, his work is incredible.
It really is. Frankl's life's work demonstrated that human meaning is fundamentally constructed through struggle. Meaning is forged in ambiguity, in the vital friction of wrestling with difficult, complex questions.
Right.
When an artificial intelligence gives you an instant, perfectly optimized answer, it actively short-circuits that psychological struggle. It resolves the uncertainty before you ever have to truly face it.
Oh.
So, the next time you are confronted with a complex problem, a blank page, or a difficult decision, wait, let me rephrase that. Instead of immediately typing a prompt into a machine to resolve your discomfort, what if you just sat with the reality of not knowing for 5 minutes? What kind of profound human resilience, what kind of authentic, embodied wisdom might you discover in that quiet space before the algorithm speaks?
What a profound question to leave us with. Do not surrender the friction that makes you human.
Eh.
Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive.
Mm.
Stay curious, and more importantly, stay conscious.